So nice to see so many of you. Last year when I came and did this, they put me on at the same time as Sir Ranulph Fiennes. So thankfully they haven't done the same again this year. Okay, my name's Lee Thompson, and for the last 15 years I've been working as a photojournalist for some of the biggest national newspapers and magazines. Within the last few years I set up my own group tour company called the Flashpack. Most of the inspiration behind the trips is from my years of travelling around the world working as a photographer to off the beaten path locations. Admittedly, most of the places that I've been to are hostile regions and extremely dangerous places. So you haven't got to worry, I don't send you to dangerous places, but I feel like there's a lot of the world that's yet to be discovered, and that's really the inspiring part behind the Flashpack. So, as I said, my work has taken me to over 100 different countries. I specialise in taking photographs of people and portraits, and that's what I'm really here to teach you about today. I'm here to teach you that you shouldn't be afraid to approach anybody in any situation and ask them to take a picture. You know, can I come up to you and take a picture? It will get your travel photography a lot better. So, it's not about your technical ability. It really isn't about what camera you're buying, which lenses you have, keeping up with the photography trends. It's all about getting out there and doing it and having the confidence to go up to anybody. I really do believe I can get a photograph of absolutely anyone in any situation. I'm going to teach you how to do exactly the same. So, recently I found myself at the very top of the Christ the Redeemer statue. And I thought to myself, how is it that I've managed to talk my way in to so many different places and up? So, I've tried to put it in to a simple formula. Okay, my rules for taking photographs of anybody. What's the worst that could happen? So, I apologise now. I'm going to flip between war pictures and pictures that I've taken during my photojournalism, and then some holiday type snaps and travel experiences. But trust me, it's all linked. Okay, as I said, you can take a photograph of anybody. This is my method. Take the picture straight away. Get a picture. So if you're on your travels and you see somebody, I don't know, it's probably not going to be someone with a rocket-propelled grenade launcher or whatever he's got in his hand. It might be a monk walking by in Burma, whatever it is, take the picture quickly. Then you've got the picture. Then, you know, it's in the bag and you can try and perfect it. Secondly, this is my method, I'll show you because it sounds stupid, but when I wrote it down it sort of makes sense. Okay, so I've taken the picture, I'll then walk up to them, go, yeah, all right, point it at the camera, and 9 times out of 10 they just go, do another picture, but I've probably made about 5 strides over and I'm much closer to my subject. Third, shake his hand, or her hand, or whoever it is, big smile, can I take your photograph? So I've got my picture already, I've got closer to them and I've probably taken another picture on the way. I've then asked them to pose for me. Now don't be afraid to ask them to stand anywhere. Once they've agreed, or they, you know, she's agreed to have their picture taken, move them into some better light, you know, put the sunshine behind them, whatever you want to do, and then take your posed picture of them. Then, obviously remember to say thank you. Trust me, this formula has worked throughout my entire career, and I could probably think of one situation where it hasn't, where a lady smashed me in the face with a handbag. But I couldn't dig out the picture, unfortunately, so there we go. So 99% successful. Okay, so these pictures were taken during the Libyan civil war in 2011. I spent roughly about a month and a half out there when Colonel Gaddafi was very much alive and well, living the high life and travelling around Tripoli trying to escape the rebels from catching him. And I tried this formula, you know, everywhere you go you're thinking, well, these guys are surely not going to mind having their picture taken, so I tried my formula. You get a picture, Luckily they go, hey, they pose up, works every time. Shake their hands, fire a couple of shots, usual sort of stuff. Same guy on the corner of the street, took his picture first. He couldn't be any more grateful for me taking his picture. He's probably really bored. So yeah, again, all these pictures from Libya. Now this is all linked, as I said. I'm going to flick towards the travel images I've done, and you can see how I've used the same formula of approaching anyone in the street when you're on your travels, war zone or not. Okay, so again, yeah, there are two bodies in the background. What I did with this guy was walking around, just sort of posing around with his gun, and he almost looked slightly sort of Mexican look to him, and I thought, what an interesting character. And I just sort of did my picture, told him to stand still, said, could you shuffle this way a little bit until I can cover those bodies behind, and there's a picture. Luckily for me, the two guys sort of come into the frame at the back, and it really makes a nice image, if not slightly disturbing. Okay, I've stuck this in image. I apologise, it is slightly graphic. That's Mr. Colonel Gaddafi, is the last gentleman there in a supermarket fridge after he was killed. So so that's Gaddafi and his son and the defence minister, who have all had better days. Now again, the gentleman in the middle, he was over in the side of the fridge, and I walked in and I just said, could you shuffle this way a little bit? And he stood there with his gun, and it's the most striking image. The gentleman on the left-hand side kept waving his hand in the air and ruining my picture, and in the end I went, we just move out the way. And he's going, disease, disease, get out. But I managed to get my frame. A little photography tip here. With digital cameras, don't be afraid to take as many photographs as you like. You can only delete them afterwards. I probably took close to 150 pictures in the space of 2 minutes whilst in there. I did not want to mess up that picture. Now, as I said, I started off with the Christ Redeemer picture. I've always sweet-talked my way into places. Now, that's a different aspect to my talk here today. Again, I've often found that a smile, a handshake, simple, showing an interest in the fact that they've got Colonel Gaddafi in this situation, and that must be amazing. What an experience in your life that you've managed to capture this dictator, and that you're, I'm talking to the security guard outside here, and that you're protecting, this great step for Libya. And anyway, he shook my hand and he said, come with me, I'll take you to where his body's stashed. It was as simple as that. No money exchange, no smile, handshake, I'll make you famous, I'll show you a picture across the world. Okay, Egyptian Revolution. Yeah, this was an interesting moment actually. It was when Mubarak, the leader, decided that he wasn't going to step down, despite the fact that all Egyptians thought he was going to, and it really kicked off in Tahrir Square. Everyone was very, very angry. Again, I was in people's faces this close, taking pictures of them. If you, for 1 second, don't take the picture, you miss the moment. They're never going to get unhappy with you. You're just there taking photographs. Again, I was probably the distance of about here. If you see a picture like that, do it. I mean, I don't expect you to go to Egypt or Libya, but again, when you're on your travels, if I can do it there, you can do it anywhere with anybody. As I said, take a picture first. If in this circumstance someone says, don't do that again, don't pass them. Yeah, I didn't mess around with these two. Well, the guy on the left was, he was all right, but this is in the favelas of Brazil, actually. Again, during my photojournalism years, I went to within the last few years ago, I went to do the emptying, I say emptying, I can't remember the correct word, cleaning up the favelas before the World Cup, in their words. So yeah, I went right up to the favelas, there was big gunfights going on, and I just sort of sat back a bit and photographed the cops as they came down. And interestingly, actually, they all had smartphones, and they were showing me, took great delight in showing me pictures on their phones of all the people that they just shot dead. Okay, switch over. Much more polite, lovely, and nice people here. Okay, so as I said, how do I use that method that I've used around my photojournalism on the streets while I was travelling around? So this trip was actually the last Burma trip that I did with the Flashpack group tour. I went on there to take photographs of everybody, which is for PR purposes for our business, for the Flashpack. I managed to talk my way into this monastery where no other tourist gets to go normally. I simply went in there and said, I'd love to see where all the monks live. Do you mind if I come in here and take some photographs? And I mean, I was the only tourist in there for hours, and I was being very respectful. Like, these monks were educating themselves and reading, and I used a slightly different. I kind of just went up close, and I just sort of, one of them looked around, and I put my thumbs up, and he just went, and then he carried on doing what they do, and I probably stayed there for 10 minutes taking photographs. They don't mind. Nobody minds having their picture taken. Again, I really like this picture. In this case, I was actually staying in a hotel just behind him, and I saw this monk walking down the street, and I thought, I'm going to get a picture of him. So I walked out and said, excuse me, would you mind standing there? And I moved him nearer the puddle, because I thought it was going to make a nice reflection. And the picture wasn't great, actually, but then he passed his umbrella to his kid, and then I got a lovely reflective shot as he did that. So again, I probably took 20 or 30 pictures there, keep taking loads of pictures. Again, if you don't take the picture, you miss the moment. As soon as this guy looked up, he didn't really want his picture. He said, oh no, don't take any more pictures, but I'd already got the picture. It's okay, you apologise, okay, no problem. You know, I've got the picture. Again, this kid actually didn't even know he was having his picture taken. If you hesitate for a moment, you've missed the picture. Take a picture first. As it happens, he turns around, he put his thumbs up at me, and I took loads of pictures, but they were nowhere near as good as this one. Yeah, you can't fail. It's obviously a different thing with children. It depends where you travel in the world. There's always a parent somewhere nearby, a gentle kind of look towards them, is it all right? And 9 times out of 10, they would absolutely love it if you took a picture of their kids. This was no exception. I've stuck this one in because I think it's a nice picture, no other reason. Okay, again, in Myanmar, I shot a bit of daily life stuff as we were driving around with the Flashpack group. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're on a coach or a bus and you're on your travels, what is the point of taking a photograph through the coach window? Never turns out. And I think, as I did here, I mean, okay, I'm the co-founder, so I did say, can you stop now? And he stopped. However, there's always a moment to get out the coach. Now, the thing where tourists go wrong, and actually anyone that is a keen photographer that on their travels and they take photographs of people like this, is that they get off the bus or the coach and they take a picture, and it's really rude. It's really rude to kind of just do that and then get back on a coach. And I just waved to these people and smiled, and is it all right? And smiled them away, and then they're all stood there, and you get some lovely pictures, but some of them haven't noticed and they're still working. Again, same with that one. If you think about it too long, you'll miss the picture, and they'll all be hiding their faces and smiling. You've got to get the picture quickly. Oh. He's pretty cute, this kid, and I'm pretty sure he was just posing for me. But yeah, we were just driving by, and this kid was just stood there like that. Clearly extremely bored, but looks like good fun. I don't think I'd try it. These kids are very, very cute. This is actually a robe changing ceremony on the streets of Pindaya in Burma, and yeah, they're just the cutest kids. Yeah, again, there's sun just breaking through these trees. It made a really, really interesting picture. This is all in Mandalay mostly. If anyone goes to Myanmar, do not skip out Mandalay. It's one of the most fantastic places for pictures. You've never seen so many monks in all your life, but they're just it makes incredible pictures. It's such an interesting topic, around a photography topic. Again, take a picture first. Actually, with this guy, I just saw an interesting bloke walking along and I thought, what's he doing? And then, you know, he's just looked back at me. I didn't see the point in him wearing a shirt, I'll be honest. Okay, so I'm switching countries and continents. I'm going over, so this is in Sierra Leone. Now, pre-Ebola, rather unfortunately, I was one of the first places that I was trying to push with the flashback was actually Sierra Leone. It's so unfortunate what's happened there now, but I went there about 4 times to do lots of different photography. In fact, I used to do some work for Christian Aid, so I was fortunate to really get to know Sierra Leone well. Now, they weren't used to tourism, but it was picking up. People were starting to go there, but it was an excellent place to take photographs because they don't even see many people walking around with cameras. But this is one of these moments that driving by in a car and it was just like, wow, stop the car, get out, like bang. And of course, I got the picture, and then after that, they all started faffing around and it's just a rubbish picture, but they're all happy to have their picture taken. So this is in Uganda. Yeah, lovely kid. This is actually in Joseph Kony's hometown in northern Uganda. You may have noticed the best bit about travel for me is travelling to places that people say you can't go. Because 9 times out of 10, it's the most incredible experience and the most raw experience of travel. This is in Uganda, as I say, and yeah, this kid just made a stunning picture. For those people that are interested in technical side of photography, you may notice there's a very there's not much depth of field. I've purposely done this. I think it's the most stunning way to take portraits. This was on about a 1.2 aperture on a 24mm lens. That's how I like to shoot portraits. Really close, knock out the background, and yeah, and you end up with a stunning portrait. Okay, switching countries, continents all over again. India. So I spent a lot of time working around Mumbai and Delhi, and really photographing, again, places there where people say you can't go to. I don't like to use this word, but locals call them the slums. Trust me, I walked around the slums for 3 days by myself. I went at sunrise, no problems, kids are high-fiving me, people are loving the fact that I've walked into their home and I'm just fine about it. It's people's perception. People think that these places are scary and that you can't go there to take photographs. What a shame. Again, I walked by. If you don't take the photograph, you miss the moment. I don't know what he was doing, I'll be honest, but doesn't look great for the kid. Again, some more stuff around Mumbai. Back to Africa, lovely girl standing on the streets of Kenya. I spent a lot of time walking around, again, shantytown areas of Kenya. These are the places I like to do. When I travel, I like to go to people's homes and see how people really live. The thing about Kenya is most people go there for a safari, get to the airport, the coach takes you one way, and you don't see any part of Kenya or Nairobi. You don't get to see the real Africa. And these people, as I said, they can't be more delighted to see you. Back to Uganda here. I have to say, when his mum saw me take this picture, she freaked out that he was holding that and made him drop it. Again, this is in Malawi. It's one of those stop the car moments, get out. Do not miss the picture. The sun was going down. These 3 kids walked by. They stopped. They looked. They did a picture, and then they started playing around and being stupid. And you know, being kids, great fun. But I got the picture. And this is in Zambia. It's a lovely child sitting in Zambia. Again, having a sleep with the dog. Yeah, just one of those lovely moments. I mean, look, wherever you travel, as I said, I don't expect people to be going to dangerous places, to Libya, to Sierra Leone, wherever they perceive as dangerous, but if you go into people's homes and see the real areas of different countries, you get nice, authentic pictures. As long as you're nice to them and you're in their area and you're being nice and you're smiling, don't be afraid to take pictures of everything you see. Okay. Switch over. Okay, right, I've gone back to my photojournalism side now. Okay, so as I said earlier, I've spent a long time talking my way into places and not being afraid of anything really. With this, what had happened, I went to South Africa and I spent 3 days travelling with the police around Cape Town on drugs raids and all kinds of stuff. It wasn't very pleasant actually. I really felt like the police are incredibly heavy-handed over in South Africa. But it was an interesting insight. And the one thing they said to me, we went to this horrendous estate, in their words, and they said, don't ever come back here, this is the most dangerous place on the planet. Cue me. Next day, I'm going to go back there, so I put some cash in my shoe and jumped in a taxi who wouldn't take me the whole way. He dropped me somewhere about 10 minutes away. I had one camera, one lens, left everything else in my hotel room. Went to a house that was very near the one that I'd raided with police a few days earlier, knocked on the door, I answered this guy. Now, he didn't have a knife at the time, but he did have bullet holes down there. So I suspected he probably wasn't the nicest man I've ever met. And he let me in. Within seconds, he had his knife out, saying, "This is what I normally do to people that come around here." But he was all right. He was all right. Again, I wanted to get my picture and get out, but I approached it the right way. He made a very interesting portrait. One problem was he was doing a lot of drugs in the room where I was. He seemed to be having a great time, and then about 10 minutes later he wanted to kill me. So this is when he was having a great time. I don't know what they're doing, but it certainly made a good picture. Again, for all you technical, people wanting some technical advice, on this picture here, I put my film speed, the ISO, up to about 6400. Another tip when taking photographs: don't be afraid to crank your film speed right up. A little bit of grain on pictures actually help make them work. Again, I never use tripods. I hand hold everything. It's too much of a pain to walk around with a tripod. These cameras, again, I don't have amazing cameras, and I don't go big on having the latest cameras, but most cameras these days, including iPhones actually, they're amazing in low light. You can hand hold them. You really don't need to be flashing everything, and it just gives amazing images. So yeah, don't take tripods, and don't be afraid to put your film speed right up on cameras. Again, I took this same image. Now, I love working with natural light. I really kind of anti using the flash on my camera. This is no exception. I walk into a place like this. Again, there's hardly any light, but there's enough coming through the beams there. And if you light it nicely, and if you take about 150 pictures, which is what I did, you'll come out with some stunning pictures. And I'm not perfect at this. This shot, if I remember rightly, there was probably 2 pictures that were pin sharp on her eyes. The rest were a load of rubbish. So take loads of pictures. Again, I like using natural light. With this guy, I stood him in a doorway. I was talking to him about what he did, and he told me that he killed 14 people. I don't know if I believe him. But anyway, I didn't really question him. And I said, well, if you're that sort of badass, I've got to have a bit of banter with these people. You've got to get on their page. And if you're much of a badass, then what gunshot wounds and what gang tattoos have you got? So he took his t-shirt. Yes, that's what I needed, because he's make a better portrait. And they sort of stood in the doorway, and I just closed the door. So there's about this much light coming through, and then you get that beautiful beam of light down the side. So, as I said, if you want to take a portrait of somebody, doesn't matter who they are or how long they're standing there having their picture taken, but ask them to move. What is the point of doing it unless you ask them to move and get them to pose like you want to pose them? Okay, very, very different subject altogether. I actually took this image I thought it would be a great idea to go to Guantanamo Bay. And to my surprise, I wrote a letter to Guantanamo Bay asking if they wouldn't mind me coming to take some photographs for some national newspapers. And they agreed. It took about a year to get permission, but I happened to go on Ramadan. And so what happens is, at Guantanamo Bay, they do tours for press almost every couple of weeks. And it's a strange place because, well, I mean, it's a very strange place. But there's an Irish bar, a McDonald's, a bowling alley, karaoke. I did a bit of karaoke, hope that's not too wrong, but I did. It's one side of Guantanamo Bay is very fun, and the other side is one of the darkest, most disgusting places on the planet. Anyway, the people showing me around wanted me to see, oh, so this is where the prison is, but you can't see any detainees. This is where this happens, but you can't see any detainees. This is where we force feed prisoners, but no, we can't see detainees. So after about day 3, I think it involved considerable amounts of drinking with the people that were showing me around. But eventually they said, okay, we'll speak to the top people in charge of Guantanamo Bay, and we'll see if you can get a picture of the detainees. I could hear them, but I was never allowed to see them. And finally they agreed. So it was like an envelope size block within a door, and they let me walk up. They said I got really quiet, and I put my camera through the lens, and basically it must have been, again, technical talk, 6400 ISO, 1/10 of a second, handhold, leaning like this, trying not to shake, which I was, because I was thinking I'm going to have about a minute to get probably the best picture I've ever taken. And I ended up with that before one of them noticed and threw something, and then tried to, well, I don't know, they dragged me out quicker than I could even see what was going on. But I managed to get, again, probably about 2 frames that were really usable, and these are the detainees through the window. Okay, totally different subject, very, very sad subject indeed. I went to cover the tsunami in Japan. I think it was in 2011. Now, okay, when I'm talking about my rules of taking photographs of anyone, anywhere, I am not an idiot with it. I know where my boundaries are, and I know who to approach and when not to take a photograph, more importantly. Now, this lady sitting on this seat had lost everything. This was her home, and she had nothing left, and she'd lost most members of her family. But I was chatting to this lady for ages, with no intention of taking a photograph. I was just talking to her, and she spoke really good English. And right at the end, she said, "That seat's all I've got left." And I said, "Well," I can't remember how the conversation went, but she said, "I'll sit." You know, she sat down, and I did this portrait. She wasn't looking at me. She's got far more important things, but I got a nice image from it. She was an absolutely lovely lady. Okay, I knew this was made up. What time are we on? Okay, so this was a witch doctor. Actually, bizarrely, I went to Barack Obama's ancestral home in a place called Kajello in Kenya, and I wanted to, I don't know, I had a bit of a fascination with witch doctors. Why not? I thought they'd make an interesting portrait, and kept asking the locals, "Do you know any witch doctors? Do you know any witch doctors?" And finally someone said, "Oh yeah, there's a great guy down there." And I turned up inside this tiny mud hut, and it had a queue of people outside, and he said, "You have to wait your turn." Like, so I queued for ages, and there were all these people desperate to, I don't know, stop, whatever the witch doctors cure these days. And I got there, and this guy, he was brilliant. He had frogs in buckets. I promise. He had bat wings, like tied to his ropes coming from his the top of his roof. He was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he was so mad that I just said, "Can you put that hat on over there? Or can you do that?" And go, "Ah!" And he went like that. So that's my picture. Don't be afraid to ask them to do what you like. Okay, another example. This guy's not as crazy at all. I was driving in a very remote region of Brazil, just outside Sao Paulo, about 600 kilometers away. And I was driving along, and I saw this guy, and I just thought, "Stop!" Like, smile. I don't know, I said stop. I was driving. I was on my own. Got out the car, and I said, "Can I take a picture of you?" And he couldn't speak any English. But he sort of agreed, and I said, do you mind jumping in my car? And I could see the sun setting just on the horizon. I said, can you jump in and can we go over there in that sunset? And he jumped in, and it's all a bit weird. But then we drive to the top of the hill, the sun's just going down. I just said, is that, I don't know what he was smoking. Anyway, I took loads of pictures of the bloke, shook his hand. Interestingly, I don't tend to show people pictures on the back of my camera. I made the mistake of doing that years ago. I'm not saying don't do it. I think you'll find some people, not everyone likes the picture, and they might try and make you to delete it. You don't need to show them. If you try and show a kid, 50 kids will come around and grab your camera, and it's just easy to give a thumbs up and thanks very much, and off you go. Okay, so we're going back around to the beginning. As I said, I've spent ages talking my way into everywhere. Now this was no exception. I needed a big PR idea to promote the Flash Pack. So yeah, cue the World Cup. I thought, what better way but to climb Christ the Redeemer statue. So just talk you a little bit through this. I had the idea to do it. I got a translator to help me with it who was based in Rio. He spoke to the church and said, I've got this guy who would quite like to take some pictures from the top. That was my intention, to take some pictures from the top. And they sort of said, well, it's possible because there's scaffolding up at the moment and because they've been fixing it after a storm. So yeah, it's doable, but we're not sure. So I flew out there, went to where the church is and where the office is for the Christ the Redeemer, waited for about 5 hours until somebody said, that's the guy you need to speak to, because they wouldn't let me in the building. It was really hard to get through. And the guy comes out and I sort of walked to him and said, I'm the guy, I want to go to the top of here. Yeah, he just said, okay, tomorrow. Yeah, do it tomorrow. So I went into a massive panic. I thought, oh, I've got to go and buy a selfie stick. And so I went to the local shopping mall and couldn't find a selfie stick anywhere. I was thinking, this thing's going to happen. And I don't know. And anyway, thankfully I didn't manage to buy a selfie stick because I think it would have ruined my picture. Yeah, they let me up and it took me about half an hour to climb to the top. There's a spiral staircase going up and you've got to go into some tight corners and get to the top and pull yourself up with rope, fit into one tiny more gap. A bloke comes up, takes the lid off the top like the manhole cover and pop out of Jesus' head. Simple as that. It went a bit mad, this picture. It went really viral and it's still going unbelievably, so I'm getting a bit bored of seeing it now, if I'm honest. Again, another picture I took from the top. There has been some remarks about how the plinth looks down the bottom, but mostly on Twitter. There's me. I've got another photographer to take a picture of me down at the bottom. He didn't get me very sharp. Damn it, he probably didn't take 100 pictures like I would have done. But anyway, there I am. And there's me again. There's another little hole there actually above. So I popped out of his shoulder, popped out down his arm, and then popped out of his head. Incidentally, they did tell me that I would need ropes and a hard hat. And then it's funny, but when I got inside there, they didn't seem to care. I think it was just the manager. And I tried to sit on the arm, and I think he panicked slightly, the guy that was with me, and he sort of grabbed both my feet. But I was fine. I actually wanted to walk across the top. Okay, so that is me. That's me, and I'm finished. So yeah, so basically, just before you all go, I'm doing a one-off trip this year to Istanbul. It's happening between the 3rd and the 6th of September. Yeah, I'd love you to all to come. So there's £150 off everyone, as long as you off the trip, as long as you come and see me at stand E10 by the end of today. Sorry, I've just missed out a massive chunk of my talk. Rewind. I just wanted to talk very briefly about the technical side of your camera. As I said, there's a little, to let you all in on it, professional photographers rarely use their camera on manual settings. I promise, they don't. The only time they'd ever use manual settings is if you're in a building and needed to use flash. Okay? There's an amazing setting on a camera called TV on Canon, it's called shutter speed priority. I'm sure most of you have heard of that. You select the shutter speed and your camera does all the hard work. It chooses your aperture for you. Most professional photographers that I know that travel around and work as photojournalists use TV, and a lot of them keep it on a low lazy setting of about 400, 500 shutter speed whilst out and about. Obviously, if you're in a darkened room, you need to take that right down, but have a play around with TV, shutter speed priority. And as I said, cameras are so good now. If you put it on auto ISO, 9 times out of 10 it will choose you a cracking ISO. So have a little play around with TV. AV is pretty good too. It chooses your aperture for you. You choose the aperture and it chooses the shutter speed for you. You've got to be a bit careful with that. If someone's walking towards you and it's a bit dark, they might end up a big blur. But have a play around with TV, shutter speed priority. That's what every professional photographer uses. Thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for me? Anybody have questions? No, real good. Right,